100 Days of Brexit. Was it as good as the Brexiteers promised, or as bad as Project Fear warned? Now that we've passed the 100-day mark since Britain formally left the EU, we're able to assess some of the key claims that were made by both sides before and after the vote to leave the EU in June 2016. We're looking at this from a market perspective and trying to avoid it being political in any way, shape or form. We're just looking at the arguments that both sides put out at the time and what's actually happened. The warnings were stark. The government said voting to leave the EU would trigger lots of things. An immediate recession, a painful fall in house prices, steep drop in exports, fuel shortages and stock markets to crash. Whilst leavers claimed that we would gain lots of things: access to significant trade opportunities in new markets, maintain frictionless trade with the EU, save money on EU membership fees. There was that big thing about how much we would save to go in the NHS. We're now able to assess some of those claims and more. The first prediction that we'll look at was whether jobs would be decimated in this country. I think this has turned out, and everyone agrees, it was a myth. Whilst unemployment went up last year because of COVID, it does remain historically low over long-term trends. Prior to the first lockdown, unemployment had been consistently falling, as you can see on the next graph. We got to the end of 2020 when we formally left the European Union, and as you can see, as we entered 2021, jobs started to fall again. The effect of COVID in this situation here cannot be underestimated. But if you actually, when you're looking at this graph and you see the general direction of where jobs went down from 2016, they continued falling pretty consistently all the way down to the end of 2019 into 2020. So the next claim we're going to look at is that house prices would crash after Brexit. Again, we believe this to be a myth. As you can see from the graph we're putting up next, the opposite has actually occurred. And if you go back over the last few years, you can see house prices have actually gone up significantly since January 2015. This country obviously is different to other places around the world in the fact that we are a small island and we have not been increasing our supply of houses to cope with the actual demand. So the price of houses have gone up. That, coupled with the fact that you can get cheap mortgages, have actually negated the effects of Brexit. So I don't think Brexit could ever really be used as an argument for either side of that argument, is that was going to cause a problem with house prices, simply because there's always been this shortage of supply. You then bring in the fact that you have interest rates now down to virtually 0.1%, with the government in the recent budgets trying to do things to help first-time buyers be able to come up with certain mortgage products and other things that will allow them to get on the housing ladder. The government wants to get people buying houses, so house price growth has been there and is expected to remain. And I think we've said on previous client updates that we've done, certainly since the first lockdown, there's been an unusual amount of people wanting to move house, buy house, so the actual movement in the property market's there. There was an article in the Times, I think it was a couple of Sundays ago, which was explaining that based on the amount of houses actually for sale at that point, compared to the amount of new houses that were coming up for sale, they predicted that there could have been like no houses for sale in the entire country by the end of the summer. Clearly that's just a crazy concept and it wouldn't happen, but what it means is that the supply of houses, again, that's available for sale goes down, prices will have to go up. So the next one we're going to look at was the pound. Would it crash against other currencies around the world? Well, obviously the pound did crash when the Brexit vote happened. However, I read one article recently from Bloomberg that shows that the pound fell 18% against the euro since the referendum. That's not strictly true, as it's not straightforward as this. If you calculate from the peak of the pound versus the euro the day before the referendum, when it was especially high due to the expectation that the country would vote to remain, yes, you will see that it has fallen by 18%. And the graph that we're putting up there now actually takes it back over a 10-year period to see how the euros performed. So if you use a value just a couple of weeks before the referendum, the pound is actually down only 9% compared to the 18% if you'd valued it the day before. You then go back to 2014, 2011, when you can see there was other points when the pound had spiked, and you're getting a more clear story. The pound hasn't performed very well against the euro, really, over a decade. And again, we go back to when the euro first formed, and the pound against the euro, I think it was €1.40 to the pound. So it's never been that great. The government has always been of the position that the pound would fall, but they did say it was complicated. So therefore, you can say that that prediction was actually correct to an extent. But certain news outlets since then have made the thing look a lot worse. The pound against the dollar today is only 3% worse than what it was when we actually voted to leave the European Union. But the worst point, obviously, again, we've had COVID in the middle of all of this as well, which does distort a lot of things. You can see that the pound against the dollar going back to February, March of 2020 was down almost 20% from where it was when we voted to leave in 2016. The pound has recovered recently. Again, that's a lot to do with what's happening with the vaccine rollout and such like. But a strong pound is obviously favourable for lots of reasons, but I don't believe you can actually say that following us leaving the European Union on the 1st of January has had any positive or negative effects really to where the pound has gone in that short period of time. But yes, we still do need to recover from the night of the Brexit vote. So thanks for listening to the first half of our Brexit discussion as to whether all of the myths that we heard at the sort of over the last 4 years have turned out to be true or false, now that we're 100 days past the UK leaving the European Union. As you will realise from this, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I think neither side has gotten its predictions correct, but sitting here today, we are in a good position. It has been done. We got a deal, and markets have certainly improved since the turn of the year. So far, so good. We hope you watch the second half of our update on this, where we'll go through another 5 or 6 of these myths and see whether things have actually developed the way it was predicted at the outset.